Welcome to the MSP Corner podcast, led by our CEO, Fernando Leon, and co founder and CEO of our MSSP, Gregory Morowitz. Each week, the MSP Corner is committed to delivering critical information for the IT service firm industry. We will discuss proven strategies for marketing, attracting an audience, how to become the influencer for an industry, selling value, scaling your IT service business, and building a sustainable IT service firm. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining podcast show number 6. Today's guest is Greg Skasny. He is the CTO of BlueShift Cybersecurity, a cybersecurity as a service company. Greg has over 20 years of experience in IT and information security. He is a graduate of Purdue University with a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and technology, focusing on networking, security, and communications. Greg has a passion for taking complex business and security problems and creating innovative, scalable solutions that can be deployed quickly and operated efficiently. But before we start our conversation with Greg, I want to share a quick overview on our main goal at the MSP Corner. And our main objective is to help CEOs of MSPs build profitable and sustainable IT service firms. We're not just providing tools for IT firms. We want to be sitting in meetings with you to ensure your IT firm stays on track. And the 5 areas we plan to offer expertise in is, IT firms are stuck selling technology or IT services. We want to provide you with the blueprint so you position your firm as an add value to your prospects. So we will have framework on how to sell value so you influence the prospect into selecting your firm. 90% plus of businesses rely on antiquated marketing methods, and marketing is going to be, we're going to be discussing marketing quite a bit, but the most popular choice MSPs rely on is word of mouth. And as an MSP for over 2 decades, we have proven methods on how to attract the ideal prospect. Our framework will include how to become the online authority and be the business influencer for an industry. And another area we plan to help IT firms is so they don't walk away from opportunities because they lack the bandwidth or skill set to scale. We have lined up resources like BlueShift so our members can hire on-demand resources so they can scale their business. And in order to deliver value, you need the right tech stack. And our platform will offer information on products that are the ideal choice for MSPs. And the last point is templates. Templates are critical to your success when you're building an MSP. And we're going to have the ideal contract in place, proposals, statements of work, collateral, and much more in the template section. And you're going to have every document you need to start up your managed IT service business. So let's kick this show off. And Greg, let's start off with with this slide. This is the first slide you guys sent over. So go ahead, kick it off.
Yeah, no worries. Hey, well, thanks for having me on. Yeah, so it's kind of a little bit about, thanks for the background in that sort of thing. I spent most of my time prior to BlueShift in another company called Cygen, but I did mostly offensive network security, right? So I did red teaming and adversary emulation, exploit development, pen testing, risk management framework stuff. And I just lost that slide, but I can still talk to it. It's okay. And the problem that people have now, BlueShift is not one of those companies. Right? We don't do offensive work. We are a purely defensive company. Hence for people who don't know, there's 2 different kind of sides of cybersecurity. There's a red team, which is the offensive side, and blue team, which is kind of the defensive side. So BlueShift is a defensive company. And I teach at a lot of cool places. And I talk to a lot of executives. I talk to a lot of people who just want help when it comes to defending their organizations. So I'm going to call anybody who is trying to get into my customers and call havoc. So I'm just going to call them adversaries across the board. The problem is people want the blinky box. They want that piece of software that's going to say, okay, I can stop an adversary from getting in and doing whatever they want. We call what they want to do action on objectives, right? So I'm going to stop that adversary from getting to action on objectives in my organization. The problem that I have to tell them is that it's not possible. There's no piece of software, no piece of hardware. There's nothing you're going to be able to do to stop a determined adversary from getting into your systems, right? And that's a hard pill to swallow. It's going to happen. It's at some point. Now, what I'm do tell people is like, hey, I don't need you to throw away the preventative technologies that you have, right? So your firewalls, your EDRs, your antiviruses, you need to have those things in place. You need to make yourself a hard target for those adversaries. But if you rely on a prevention model, which means I'm going to prevent 100% of the time of an adversary getting into my organization, you're going to lose that bet, right?
Yep.
And the problem comes down to this. And I tell people, doing offensive cyber is actually easier than doing defensive cyber. It's technically more challenging, right? So you have to be able to write an exploit and be able to social engineer people and things like that become a little more technically challenging than the defensive side. But I can pick a person or I can pick a technology to go after, do reconnaissance on that organization, and pick very specific things to target to get into. And as a defender, you don't know where that's coming from, so you have to protect everything, and you can't.
Yep.
You can't protect everything. That's the problem. So what you really need is this, what we call in addition to your preventative pieces, is a detection and response capability, right? So to have the ability to detect anomalies in your environment, investigate those anomalies to see if they're malicious in nature, and then respond to those anomalies very, very quickly. And that's a daunting task, but that's what our company does. Right? That's what BlueShift does for our clients. Most customers aren't going to have the resources to be able to do that. Even if I gave them all the data we get in our platform, it's going to be tough for even an MSP to do that. We have very different jobs from MSPs, and I personally think that MSPs have a hard have a hard job, right? To be able to be that IT, to be that be all end all for your customers is something they expect a lot from, and they don't really want to pay a whole lot for. So we try to ease that burden in providing the security operations and security stack for those MSPs. So that this is what we try to do with this platform is be able to put it in very quickly, put it in very affordably, so that MSPs can obviously make money on it. We can survive with it and give customers a very high level of service for hopefully at a very affordable price.
So, Greg, let me ask you a quick question. When you say you're going to be responding to, let's say, this alert, let's say it's a suspicious alert, do you guys provide service level agreements? So you guarantee, hey, we're going to start investigating within minutes or hours, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so from our standpoint, we investigate everything immediately, but our process looks a little bit different because it's not like most traditional something is broken, I have to fix it type
Yep.
deal, right? So
Yep.
the way that our systems work and the way most of these systems should work is there's a very high level of automation that goes into our system. We collect data from so many different points. It's unbelievable. We want to get, that's a whole premise of our platform, is to get visibility into an organization. And some things that our automation will detect, we will send up to our analysts to be able to then do an investigation on to see if it's if it's something that is actually malicious. A lot of things that look malicious sometimes aren't. A lot of things that look not malicious sometimes are. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we investigate those things. Everything kind of happens immediately, and we have a process in our SOC about how we divvy up customers and who has to look at what and those sorts of things. But everything, it's done on a continuous basis, and that's a little bit different about us, is we're continuously hunting. So we continuously get information in, we're continuously looking at things, and we can correlate those things together, right? And we get the nice thing is you get a critical mass of customers, you can start correlating things across customers too, to see, hey, we've seen this at this client before. This is indicative of what we're seeing here, and that this is something that everybody needs to be made aware of, or things like that. So the nice thing about dealing with us is you get what you end up getting from our security operations center is curated things. You're not getting alert fatigue, right? So we're not sending you just automated alerts all the time. Those automated alerts go to our analysts. Our analysts make determinations, and they send out to our customers, our MSPs, or their customers, depending on how they want to do that. Curated alerts, right? So here's what we found. Here's what you need to do about it. Here's how we're going to monitor that you did. What you need to do about it, and it all depends on what it is. Everything's different from day to day. So
one of the questions that probably will be coming up, because it comes up with us when we're chatting with other MSPs, is, let's say, because these guys are super sharp, man. These guys, they know a lot about security, and they already have tools in place. Let's say a SIM, EDR, log collection, compliance reporting. Will yours encompass all of that so they don't have to deploy their own tools? You guys deploy your platform and it's pretty much turnkey and you're done? Is that
Yes,
how this would work?
yes, we try to make it as
Okay,
turnkey as possible, right? So,
awesome.
collecting, we have SIM components, we collect data, right? That's the biggest part about it, and part of that is log data, which is obviously very important. We get data from cloud services. So again, your Office 365, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, G Suite, SASE applications like Cato Networks, authentication applications like Okta. We correlate all that data together into our platform, into kind of one pane of glass, if you will, for each of our customers,
Awesome.
because you need to be able
Nice.
to correlate those things together, right? So
Yep.
you can't take them
Yep.
in silos, and it's a lot of data. Like we probably, and even in a small environment, we're probably capturing, I don't know, 7 or 8 million documents, which are an entry into our system every day. So it's a lot of data out there.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Let me know when you want me to go to the next slide because
Oh,
I
you
am
can go. Yeah,
controlling
go.
this
I'm sorry. Yeah, you go. I'm sorry. I'm not sure how many slides you got. This is a problem. So I'm
We've
not.
got we've got one more. So
Okay, perfect. This is
yeah.
good. This is part of actually I came up with this, so I'm familiar with these. So this is our kind of what our platform does, and this is actually a good slide to talk about where we gather our data from and how we gather it. Defensive cyber is nothing more, like I said, than a big data problem, right? You need visibility into an organization to be able to defend it properly, and you want to get that visibility across the board. But the problem with systems like this generally is they're complex, and so they're hard to implement. And anytime you get to that roadblock of this is going to take a lot of time to implement, or talk a lot, especially from the MSPs, that that makes it difficult to get your system in. So we really try to make our system very easy to install. Like, I mean, we can basically ship you a piece of hardware, you plug it in, and we take it from there. As long as you have an RMM tool to push out some agents, then you're good to go, and we watch everything else. But the kind of crux of our platform is around the bottom left hand portion, kind of the SIM portion of that. So, and it's kind of a SIM on steroids, because it's not your traditional, just collect log files and correlate things. Everything goes into our back end, which is, again, it's logs from endpoints, logs and security configuration information, right? So it's everything from your logs, it's every application that's installed, it's every network port that's listening, it's every vulnerability that's on there, it's everything we can contextually grab from that endpoint. Your technology limited by that, by the way. There's no one has any special capabilities of grabbing things off of endpoints, just so you're aware. So um, everybody's kind of collecting the same thing. So, but we want to collect that endpoint data. We want to do that as cost effectively and as possible. And then we ingest from other platforms as well, right? So we want to, again, because we ingest from all the clouds, we integrate with other endpoint solutions. So you're in your Sentinel ones, your CrowdStrikes, your Deep Instincts, your Windows Defender, your Sophos, and on and on and on. Just about anything we can find in our customer environments that there's a possibility of us grabbing interesting data that we can correlate, we will grab and pull into the SIM. And so that kind of gives us our baseline of everything we kind of need to look at. Then we start adding on things. So we have an MNDR component, which you see up there. So MNDR stands for Managed Network Detection and Response. So for places where appropriate, where they have networks, and it doesn't have to be just networks with servers on them, networks anywhere that you have an internet connection where people are sitting is a vulnerable point. We want to collect network level data. So that low level packet level data. There's a few reasons for that. Network level data like that is not bypassable by remote adversary. Like, so we've had instances of adversaries getting in and trying to shut off our endpoint stuff, right? Shut off our monitoring agents.
Yep.
And we detect that, obviously. That's something that's detectable, but they're trying to cause that blind spot, right? And they're going to turn off your AV, and that's just it's just part of what their TTPs are. On the network side, they can't do that. Like, they can't stop me from sniffing on the network, right? So, and they can't even really see the devices on there, so they can't bypass that. And so that gives us this kind of single source of truth. And then it also allows us to see all the things. What I mean by all the things is, and it's an important concept in InfoSec, is that there's plenty of equipment that people have on their networks. And again, it differs depending on vertical, right? But even if you're in a small office, you have networking equipment and printers. I cannot tell you how many times I store malware on printers because no one looks at them and everybody trusts them. So, and I don't have to cross any network boundaries once I get it on there. So those sorts of things you need to look at, because adversaries know that you're not looking at those devices you can't put an agent on. So that's how we can look at those devices by putting that network piece on there. And then when you get into things like industrial control systems, water plants, power plants that we deal with, industrial control systems, operational technology is a big deal. And the only way you can really effectively protect and monitor those type of devices is with a piece of networking equipment. So we do gather all that, and then we can correlate that stuff together. And it becomes so important when something happens that unless I can show people in action, it's things we responded to 0 days, and how we can, when we detect something that's been compromised, then we can go back and correlate that to network data to say, okay, what else did they get? Did they download a second stage? Did they pivot anywhere else? We can see if they created accounts, obviously with SIM. Can we see what else they downloaded, where they downloaded it from? Are they doing exfiltration? Are they, all the things you can put together very, very quickly from a response becomes very, very impressive. And that's the real key to systems like this, is how fast I can get in, detect it, and respond to something that I see that's anomalous inside that customer. The faster you do that, the less expensive it is for them to be able to remediate that. As they wait longer and longer, that price goes up exponentially, right? So,
Yeah.
so that's part of what we do with that. So we all, and I'll get to the end of this real quick. So we have the SOAR automation piece. So that's security operations and security orchestration, automation, and response. It's the automation piece behind what we do. You can't do what we do without automation. Our automation is that's kind of our secret sauce, right? So that's what makes us do what we're able to do. Our automation runs 24/7 all the time. It looks for anomalies. It will automatically block things. It does a lot of that triage for us on the front end. And we're always continuously trying to improve our automation with our platform. And then the whole thing is delivered as a service. So, and that's the key part of it. It's really turnkey. You don't have to do it much. You supply us with a network diagram. We'll help you instrument and get all the right sources right. We configure everything. We ship it to you, plug it in, and it's done. It's 100% monitored and maintained by our SOC. So you don't ever have to touch the system again.
So you hit on something kind of funny, because this happened to one of our clients where we've been preaching. We get on our soapbox and we tell all our clients, you need a SOC in place, you need SIM, you need log collectors, you need all this stuff, and they just ignore us. A lot of them ignore us, and a lot of them listen to us. But you mentioned a printer during the MNDR section there, and I'm pretty sure, Gregory, you're going to have to confirm this. But one of our clients who wasn't listening to our security recommendations, the hacker came in through a printer. Is that right, Greg? You got
That's
more
right.
information?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
They do
different
come
Greg,
in
sorry.
through printers.
And they encrypted, I think, 2 out of like 20 of their servers. And fortunately, our guy was just looking at the network by accident and was able to unplug the other servers from the network and keep it from spreading. But man, that's such a big deal. It's such a, you would think a printer would be the last endpoint that would be vulnerable to your network, and it's incredible how they were able to get in after we did the entire investigation. Yeah, the printer was the entry point. It's crazy.
Well, the thing about doing, again, from those off points, right? So you always want to use a trusted device, and a printer is always a trusted device, and it's always a underconfigured device, right? And
Yeah.
in most
Yep.
parts, what do people do with printers? They, again, even people who have MSPs, for the most part, those small and medium-sized companies, they want a printer. What do? They go out and buy a printer, they stick it on the network, plug it in, they start printing to it. They don't care about anything else. I'm printing.
Yep.
I'm good.
Yep.
They don't think about any kind of SNMP configurations, turning off any kind of file sharing on the thing. I'm just sticking it on there. I'm let it go. I'm never going to update it. Right.
Yep.
And
Yes.
adversaries know this. I mean, again, us good guy adversaries knew that years ago. Real adversaries know this. They know how to get around. We've had, it's not just printers. We've had lots of different pieces of equipment that is just impossible for you to get an agent on. We've seen compromised over the years, right? So
Yeah.
you have to watch those things. If you don't, that's just going to be the point of the attack, right? So.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
All right. Let me get to
Yeah,
this.
and so it's
Next slide.
So next slide. So this is how we work, right? This is the crux of how we work. And like I said, I've stole this graphic because I steal all my graphics. But I did put that little yellow line. There to kind of talk about like how our SOC works in our methodologies, right? So everything from that, and this is called the pyramid of pain. I didn't come up with it. It's a really great diagram to show the stuff that you collect from a security perspective in an organization or even against an adversary. All the stuff is
Yeah.
available for in every organization, and every adversary has things about this. But the things below that line are things that everybody should be collecting, right? Hash values, IP addresses, domains, artifacts, all that kind of stuff, logs should be in there as well. But the problem is they're really plentiful. There's a lot of them. And they
Yeah.
change all the time. From like, how often do adversaries change their hashes? Every hour, right? So
Yeah.
the only way you can deal with that stuff, this is where automation sits. So we call these indicators. These are indicators of compromise. So indicator-based detections that we look at. So our automation can go through that at machine speed, right? Because computers are really good with those things that are mathematical in nature, and spit out what I call interesting bits. And again, I have a degree in engineering, so that term interesting is an engineering term. This is an interesting thing that comes out of our automation, sends it to an analyst who can then make a hypothesis, make an idea of what that is telling him, right? Because that's where you need humans to make that determination. You can then take that, he or she can then take that information and start looking for the things that would make those indicators malicious, right? So you can look for tools. Tools are mostly on the post-exploitation side, things that adversaries use, whether it's remote access Trojans, whether it's post-exploitation frameworks like Cobalt Strike or Silver, living off the land binaries. Used to be PowerShell Empire, things like that. But you can look for those tools that adversaries would use because they're hard for automation to see. And see if those are part of what you're seeing. And then you can also search what's called TTPs. TTPs are called tactics, techniques, and processes, or what is called processes, that adversaries use to do what they do. It's basically like what the MITRE attack framework is built off of. These are very difficult for automation to deal with because most to do the things they want to do, how they're going to use Active Directory to do reconnaissance, using Sharphound or Bloodhound or something like that, how they're going to pivot or do privilege escalation, all those sorts of things that they have to do in an environment to get to a point where they're on a domain control and they can push out ransomware if that's their action objective. Those things are hard for automation, but easy for an analyst to see. So they can take those things, again, make a hypothesis, start hunting for it, so do real traditional hunting, to find out if that's malicious or not. And if it is, then we can take actions, whether it's again blocking an endpoint or getting a hold of the customer and saying, hey, we got to do this XYZ, pull this machine off, restore it, whatever the case may be, whatever playbook, depending on what we're seeing that will have them do. So this is kind of how our SOC scales and how we work. So we're kind of getting the cream of the cream when it comes to what we're looking at. Some things, in the beginning, our customers get a lot of contact from our SOC because we don't know the environment. So we may see banks are notorious as PSExec. I hate PSExec, because tons of ransomware people use it, right? Ransomware groups use PSExec, but IT guys use it too. It's very can be very effective for managing IT environments. So trying to find out the right usage of PSExec in those environments, what servers they're expected to come from, so we can tune our anomaly detectors to look for the things where they're not expected to come from. So, all of that kind of stuff gets to be, it's just part of the challenge.
Interesting. Greg, you're the most technical one on our team here. So do you have any questions for Greg? Because he's on fire here. This thing is a lot of great information for our technical folks out there. So I'm just a sales guy, so don't think I'm the sharpest tool in the shed here.
No, he's doing great. He's doing perfect. These are good pieces of information.
Yeah, I agree. Great stuff.
Yeah, these are only 3 slides I gave you, or they gave you, or Rob gave you.
Yeah, that was it.
Okay,
that was
no,
all
but we
Brant.
can, again, I don't know how long you want to go, but I've there's tons of other things we can discuss around the platform, especially when it comes to new things we're doing. We're always again, the nice thing about our platform is it's always updated by us, right? So when we push out new features and new functions, we pushed out large upgrades this week. All of our customers get those. So like we start doing integrations with other things, like Sysmon is a great example. So we integrate Sysmon on Windows machines into our data collection, so we can see more things on the command line, those sorts of things. And it just happens. Our customers get it, and we get our agents updated, and away we go. And that's the nice thing about our platform is we work very well with our customers or MSPs. We even let our MSPs, if they don't ever want us to talk to their clients. So some MSPs or MSSPs we work with are very they don't want us involved with talking to their clients, which is perfectly fine by us. So we end up reporting it to their staff, and then their staff takes care of it. We have some MSPs who give us a handful of customers and say, you can just deal with these guys, all on your own. But if any of these guys call, let me handle it. So okay, that's fine by us too. Being a small and nimble company, we are very easy to work with, right? We are easy to change and put process in place and do that. We don't have this kind of rigid, it's always this way or not done this way. We're always looking for, new ways to do things, ways to make it easier for MSPs to utilize our platform, easier to get information from. We constantly are trying to get a hold of our customers and say, okay, what do you like about the platform? What don't you like? No, and from our standpoint, at least my standpoint, being a technical guy, I know what our platform is really good at, right? So it's really good at collecting data. It's really good at gathering all this information and making good decisions on it and all that kind of stuff. Where we're trying to get improvement from our customers is in the reporting side of things. We have reports that get generated and all that kind of stuff, but it's so hard from a technical perspective to know what people want to see. And I'm paranoid about giving out information too. Like I don't want to give out too much information without you making sure that you're allowed to see that kind of stuff. So, we're always working with our clients and our MSPs to make sure that we can make this the best for them and us.
Yep. Yep. No. I like the flexibility that you were just mentioning, and your expertise is just is going to be obviously in great demand with a lot of MSPs who are making that transition to the MSSP. So your expertise is just going to be in great demand. So that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah,
But
we have good. It's not just me. I have a great team behind me. I have great DevOps people that we work with, and our SOC analysts are really really good. But it's a different breed of person, right? So these guys thrive on like the hard thing about cyber in general is it's all about the very little details. And when I say very little details, I'll give you an example of something that we were called in for an incident response. We don't do many incident responses for non-customers. But if one of our MSP clients says, hey, I'm having some troubles, if you can we ship a sensor out to one of these clients to help see what's going on, we usually will acquiesce to that fact and do that for them because it ends up leading to a customer. But this client, I won't say what kind they were, but they were compromised. And we're trying to figure out how they were doing what's called command and control. So for people who aren't aware, command and control is the hands-on access that adversaries get once they've exploited an environment. So they got in some way, somehow. I won't disclose how because they should have never been doing what they were doing. But long story short, an adversary did get in. But the way they were staying underneath most of the radar when they were doing command and control is they were using ping. Everybody knows what ICMP is, right? So ping.
okay.
They were modifying ICMP packets to do their command and control, and that's one of the things we actually look for. So part of, again, having that network data is we collect low-level packet data, and we collect things like flows, right? So flows are the conversations that happen and the ages of those flows and the number of bytes that are sent with each packet. Now, for the little more technical people on here, when you send a ping, you're sending a packet in that IMC that has ICMP packet that is a certain length, and it's always the same. You should get back that same length. It should be the sent and receive packet should be the same. We noticed that coming from 2 of the 3 different machines, that the receive packets were way bigger than the sent packets. So guess what that means? That means that they're using that to do command and control. So we can then take a raw TCP dump and then figure out what they were doing. It was all encrypted command and control. But we knew machines were infected by looking at that kind of stuff. Those are the type of minuscule details that people need to, when you're dealing with cybersecurity, right, and being an analyst, that you need to be able to look at. It's a fun but challenging discipline. You can ask any of our analysts; they're like, man, sometimes things are just not they're not easy. The adversaries are very crafty. I mean, they're the people think that, and the ones that end up getting breached usually think this. The guys who don't want to spend a little bit of money, and this platform we have is not super expensive, just to be brutally honest. They just don't want to. They just don't think they need it. They don't think they're a target, and they think that the people who are trying to break in these organizations, even if you have a small business, are not technically challenging people. Like but they're wrong. These guys are actually, the guys who are doing the ransomware stuff are smart people. They really are. They really know. They know, like, these are system level admin guys. They understand Active Directory. They understand, they're writing good code, and things like that. So what we're up against is not a large kid in his basement eating pizza, being yelled at by his mom anymore. These are determined adversaries and they don't really care about your size. They're out there to get paid. And they don't. If you're a 1 or 2 person shop or a 100-person shop, if you'll pay, that's what they want to do. And if you don't pay the ransom, they'll blackmail you. It's on and on and on. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. We hear the same. We have the same conversations. We don't think we need this, and we're not. We don't have an X on our. We're not a target, and I'm like, oh boy, it's just a matter of time.
So everybody's a target. So and this is something people should realize. Even at your house, you are a target, and I can prove this fact because this is very recently. There was an advisory put out by CISA about an adversary campaign called Volt Typhoon. What Volt Typhoon is they were using an unknown exploit to get into a Fortinet firewall. So you can have a fully patched Fortinet firewall. I'm not saying Fortinets are bad or anything like that. I'm just saying that at this point they happen to have an exploit for a fully patched Fortinet firewall that would give them access to, because a lot of times those firewalls are integrated with Active Directory, give them access to Active Directory, and then they would be able to download some very stealthy malware that use what's called living off the land binaries. But what they use to do their command and control, that's the crux of it. This was more than likely a Chinese adversary, but they used all US-based compromised home routers to do their command and control.
Wow.
So they went and created a botnet with all US-based home routers, because people say, well, I'm not worried about but you, by not taking security seriously at your home or your small business, are now being part of this campaign that's being used to compromise other people. If you have a device connected to the internet, it's the whole point of my story. Any device connected to the internet, you have something of value to an adversary, and you need to take that seriously. It doesn't matter how, and sometimes they're going to come after you too. It's just a matter of time. So
that's crazy. Yeah, these guys are so creative, and they're so right. They're just they're looking for every vulnerability out there, and they're gonna take it. They're gonna take it.
And that's the problem is they are looking all the time, right? So if you mess up, right, you make a mistake, and I say this because part of our platform has an algorithm that looks for mistakes in particular, because mistakes are the third leading cause of data breach. Excuse me, I was going to sneeze, but I fought it off. If you make a mistake and leave something open that's vulnerable, they will take advantage of that mistake, and they'll do it very quickly. So you need to have that, you need to have everybody kind of watching over everybody else. And that's part of what our again, I'm not a sales guy, but part of what our platform does is we try to figure out, again, from working on the offensive side, what adversaries actually do from an adversary relation standpoint, and then put detections around those so we can try to detect those in the environment. Because we just don't want, we know our customers are going to make a mistake. It's going to happen, right? If we can detect that before the adversaries do, it's much better for us and our clients. So, it's not going to ever change, and I don't say ever, but it's going to be not in my lifetime, right? So it's just getting, people, and I got to say something about the cloud too. So people always think that they're moving to the cloud, and that just solves all my security woes, and it's just not the case. It's not the case. It still comes down to that, that doing, good cyber hygiene in your environments and on your endpoints and your networking equipment and that sort of thing. Because if I can get into your machine and I can steal your tokens and those sorts of things, I'll get into your cloud, and guess what? I'll steal the data from your cloud too. I did that with a banking client and all their Salesforce data. They thought they were safe just because they had Salesforce. So not that Salesforce is bad, but your security is only good as your weakest link. So.
Yep, I agree. Well, I don't have anything else. Greg, do you have anything for Gregory? Do you have anything for Greg?
No, you haven't spoken about social network kind of, getting into how do you guys deal with the social, if you do it at all? I know you. Yeah, go ahead, and if you can talk a little bit about social.
We don't deal with like social networks or social engineering piece of that. The human element is tough, right? And that's always going to be that weak link. We know that's going to happen. So again, whether you're talking about profiles on social media and giving away information, which is bad, or the pure social engineering aspect of offensive cyber, or what adversaries do, because they're very good at that. They're going to do that. There is no, it is, I don't want to say it's an insurmountable problem, but it's a very, very difficult problem for a technical platform to resolve, because it's a people problem, right? It's a personnel issue, and sorry, but people are just vulnerable. They're not vulnerable. They're just gullible, especially non-technical people. I don't mean that in a bad way. They all have a job to do, but I can't tell you how many times I've been called because someone has given their credentials out to a site that someone asked them to reset their password, and it wasn't their Office 365 site. Now, should they be using two-factor authentication? Yes. You can say it all the time you want, but again, people make mistakes, and it's going to happen. Difficult for us to deal with. But what I will say is that what we try to do is, when we know those mistakes happen, the aftermath of those are the things we try to catch really, really quickly. I'll give you an example of that. We had a guy who called us, put on our platform. We were monitoring his AWS environment, and all of a sudden we saw this huge spike in VMs being fired off in his not normal in his environment. So we called him and said, hey, did you just, your account just fired off, 60 VMs? That's not normal. Is this something you're doing? He's like, no, I haven't logged in. Well, what happened? He's not a real technical guy. He knew how to put in some VMs. He didn't turn on 2FA, even though we asked him to. And someone fished his credentials and then fired off a whole bunch of machines to do crypto mining, right? But catching it meant that, okay, his bill was up by a little bit, but those machines were only on for several minutes. It wasn't that big a deal. You make him put on his 2FA, fix the problem, fix your 2FA, do the right things right, and then now go back to your business. It became an annoyance rather than something that could have been much, much worse, right? So, and that's what we try to do, is make sure we can, once we detect those things, that again, they become annoyances to deal with versus, oh my God, we have to deal with a ransomware event, or we have to deal with a large bill, or whatever the case may be. I got stories for days.
I'm sure you do. All right.
It's fun. Yeah.
Well, Greg, thanks for joining us. I don't think Gregory has anything else. Greg, unless
Awesome.
No, I'm good.
We appreciate you making time for us and our audience, because I know you're a busy guy, but thanks again for making time for us, because this is a big deal.
It is.
All right.
It's people need to be aware. So.
Well, that's the end of the podcast show. I just want to tell everybody thanks for listening, and if they want to join the MSP Corner, they just got to go to www.mspcorner.com, and we're going to have more interviews with Greg and more as innovative technology comes out. They're going to be coming up with new features, and I'm sure very valuable information for the MSP world. So thanks again, guys. Appreciate your time. Have a good night.
Thanks for listening. If you have not joined the MSP Corner, go to mspcorner.com.